it's super exciting for me to be here today to be able to moderate the panel with such fine colleagues from such an amazing publication. Just as quick background, my role here is head of sales at Taboola. We're a native platform with lots of other tricks and whatnot, and I'll leave it at that. And so in full candor, we work with the Washington Post to help them find audiences and things along those lines. But part of the reason I'm super excited to be here is, the Washington Post has been around since 1877. And so for 145 years, they have figured out ways to adjust and to shift and to apply areas of focus, both long-term and short. And that trend continues today, for sure, with the folks that we have on this panel. So I think what I'd love to do at this point is just go around the room real quick and ask the panelists to reiterate what they do and just a little bit about themselves at the Washington Post. So Chase, do you want to take it away?
Sure. Hi, my name is Chase Meacham. It'll be 5 years for me at the Post this spring. I currently work on our e-commerce flows on site. So that's basically any way where we are able to convert an anonymous reader into somebody that's a known reader to us who has an account. And also any way that we convert readers into subscribers through our paywall, registration walls, our product page, our purchase flow, all of that good stuff. Let me pass the mic over to Joe Mack.
Thanks, Chase. So I'm Joe Mack. I'm the head of paid growth at the Washington Post. I've been here for 4 years. Essentially, I oversee offsite acquisition, and I serve as the team lead for our in-house performance marketing team. I'm internally known as like the data person. My first job in the industry was delivering newspapers. At the age of 15, I used to work for the St. Petersburg Times in Florida. And so the gulf of delivering newspapers, a physical form, to selling newspapers through digital media is actually very close. So we'd love to talk about that. I'm going to pass it to Deme Walls.
Thanks, Joe. I'm Deme Walls. I help amplify the reach of our Washington Post content to potential customers and through both paid and unpaid avenues, including Taboola, like Scott said. And that's about it. Mike, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thanks. Mike Ribero here. I'm Chief Subscription Officer. It just means I have the pleasure of working with this team. I'm 5 months into a job, and I have no clue what I'm doing. Maybe I should have said earmuffs to the team first, but I've just been so amazed at all the things that we have done and continue to do. So after that, before I joined the Post, I was in streaming first at Sling and then most recently at Paramount Plus, and then I did some other boring stuff. But really excited about being here today, and thanks so much for having us.
Very good. Joe, very impressive that you delivered newspapers, although I have to imagine it was a little bit easier down in Florida than some of my colleagues up in Minnesota in the middle of winter time.
Yeah, so I did it over the summer at 15. So I learned how to drive while delivering newspapers at night. Nobody out, no traffic. It was wonderful.
Very good. I have to imagine that's instant street cred when you started the job at Washington.
Yeah, it was.
Well, so why don't we lead it off with some questions. The topic of today is around customer engagement. And then being that that's our topic, I wanted to first ask you to talk about how consumers at a media company may be different from how a lot of the audience that's listening may define their own consumers. And how do you engage with these audiences? I know if you wouldn't mind sharing what customer engagement means to you guys and how you approach it, that would be fantastic. And I think I need to throw the question out to specific people, so put people on the spot, and then others can chime in. So I'm gonna throw this one out to Joe first.
Yeah, so as the data person, we always use data to drive actionable strategies. And so to us, customer engagement is at a very top level, using the data that we know to create the best high quality customer experience, whether they're on social media or they're in our O&O ecosystem or they're loyal subscribers. It doesn't really matter like where in their life cycle they are. Like a high quality customer experience is just as important through digital media as it is in real life. And so for us, creating a customer journey, thinking about all the touch points and then optimizing those touch points based on data is really important to us. Deme Walls works very closely with the newsroom and with the social media operations. And I think that's where a lot of engagement happens for us.
Yeah, Deme, you want to expand on that a little bit and how, I'm actually really curious about what we determine the product to be of the Washington Post. And is the product the paper itself, or is the product really some of the fantastic writers and whatnot that you have and the type of content they produce? So I'd love to hear your take.
Absolutely. So we're really lucky to work with an amazing team of journalists, editors, reporters, writers who bring the news to the everyday consumer, whether they're in the United States or around the globe. And they're creating, without them, we wouldn't have content that people can use every day to know what's next in their life. They wouldn't have the newsletters that they can tune into daily to know what's happening in the world. They wouldn't have a podcast that they could listen while they're on their way to work or working out at the gym. And so without them, that is the product that we want to market, like the everyday utility that a news consumer can use. And so it's a little bit of both. So we work very closely with the newsroom to understand what's coming. You can't predict the news. Even we'd love to try, but we work with them very closely to understand what their goals are with the audience and understanding who they want to reach. They're in so many different communities. We want to make sure we're reaching everyone. So that's kind of helps inform our consumer engagement strategy is knowing what news consumers want and understand their needs.
I'd build off that and just say, so like Deme and Joe have said, we operate with a lot of different types of customers in different spots in the customer journey, as well as across different channels. So, I mean, if you think like we could be on a podcast, we could be on YouTube, we're in a lot of these different places, and then like do the cross-reference of, okay, is that person a subscriber? Are they a prospect? Have they never heard the of the post ever? And so I'd say a lot about what we think about is, okay, at those various intersections, like what does engagement mean? I'd say for a subscriber, we're probably very similar in a subscription. We want people to use the product and we want them to use it more frequently in any given month. Not necessarily like spend hours and hours, but sort of number of days within a month. But then when we think, when we're starting to onboard new customers, we might, if we're on a podcast, we might be able to drive a download or drive a listen that's maybe just someone who hasn't thought about the post before. And I think, some of the things that we're doing and we're really planning for, call it, 2022 and beyond is that next generation of listeners, that next generation of news consumers. We want to sort of like, we want to think about engagement in their terms on the platforms that they are. I know we'll get to it and I'm just going to scratch the surface, but we have a TikTok handle with over 1 million organic views. I mean, we have spent $0, not zero, maybe like 1 or 2, but very few dollars in terms of growing that audience. And that's sort of been amazing to me because to see that sort of build organically. I think some people, and you get some of the naysayers, is like, this next generation doesn't want news. Like they don't want your product. And, to me, I point to that as an example of like, sure, I understand, there's some secular declines in how we're thinking about news, but maybe it's just we're not giving it into the right vessel. We're not thinking about the right engagement metrics, et cetera, to be thinking about how journalism is going to be consumed in the years coming.
Well, that's a good That's an interesting point, Michael. I imagine even as recent as 5 years ago, when a few of you folks have joined, where and how people consume the content that you guys produce has probably changed quite a bit, and maybe even the demographic. I'm just curious how you sort of touched on it, but I'm curious if you can just talk about how you're gathering data from those different channels and how that goes into the bigger bucket of how you think about maybe even what kind of news or how you report on the news that you do.
Like internally, we are on the precipice of gathering data, centralizing it, and just really understanding like basic marketing, getting to know your customer at a very individual level, and then using mechanisms like soft walls, paywalls, and other marketing touch points to give the right message at the right place at the right time. And so for us, we always want to be where the customer is. And Scott, you had mentioned that we are, an old institution, or we've been around. And for, I think, some younger people, being on TikTok, seeing the Washington Post on TikTok may be kind of out of place. But, data suggests that, as Mike pointed out, that people do want the news. It's just a matter of understanding what they want out of us and creating pathways to conversion. And I think that's kind of what Chase does at the Washington Post, which is using on-site touch points to communicate messages, especially for younger, more mobile audiences.
Yeah, we do a lot of thinking about, our newsroom publishes all kinds of content on a bunch of different topics. People around the world know us for our political coverage, for our opinions and our editorials. We're also experts in climate coverage. We've got a great lifestyle section, personal technology section. So a lot of what I work on is thinking about like what kinds of audiences are we catering to on what kinds of topics. Somebody that's deep into our opinion section, they might be what we would think of as sort of a core Washington Post reader. They might be, primed to subscribe. They might already kind of know exactly what kind of value we deliver for their lives. If somebody's reading some of our food content or our travel content, they might not be ready to subscribe. They might not have sort of found the full Washington Post, but they're with us, they're reading. So we sort of think about in the time that we have somebody on our site, like what's the right message to reach the right person with? Is it an invitation to sign up for a newsletter, to download an app? Is it a subscription offer? If so, what offer should they get? It's an area of a lot of collaboration between us, our newsroom, our product team. One of the things that's nice is that in the news business, you often hear this idea of like church and state between the business and the news department. And in the time that I've been here, in 5 years, that is so much less a thing than it used to be. Our colleagues in the newsroom are super interested in being active collaborators in the subscriptions business, in learning what kinds of stories convert, what kinds of stories are good for leads, what kinds of stories are bringing in new audiences that traditionally haven't subscribed to the Post. So it's a great way for us as marketers to sort of lend our area of expertise to what they do so well, which is producing some of the world's best journalism.
Yeah, my build on Chase would be, Joe, you can see Joe's wearing it right now. Our sort of call to action, like what guides us all, is this concept of democracy dies in darkness. And I think, to me, that's so inspiring. I think it's heavy too, in terms of like how we think about marketing on a day-to-day basis. I come from the streaming world, and basically in the streaming world, a lot of the recommendation engines, a lot of the content promotion, you sort of go down the echo chamber. And so it's like, if you watch a murder mystery, you're going to get 15 other murder mysteries. I think like one of the things that I think about and I sort of wrestle with, and I think like it goes to just the essence of democracy, is I don't think that's something we want. And so, maybe it's a unique challenge that, if all your reading is left-leaning or right-leaning, like to us, that's probably not a good outcome for society. Like it might be a good outcome for page views and some of these other things, but when we think about like, why are we in this business? We want to create a sustainable business because we want journalism to go on to infinity, so democracy can go on to infinity. So there's some of those nuances, being in this new role that I just never thought about before, but at least to me, and maybe it's just me, but are just so profound.
Yeah, so to underscore that, one of the reasons why I love the Washington Post is that we are so mission driven. Like Democracy Dies in Darkness isn't just like under the masthead. It's something that we actually like believe in, like on a day-to-day basis. And so balancing marketing principles with this idea that we want to be unbiased, delivering the news to people, we don't want to put our finger on the scale, is definitely something that we talk about. And I think that the route that we have chosen, which is taking a look at performance, using KPIs as a North Star, understanding what behavior actually means, and then running A/B tests to test these ideas, has given us a path to grow without harming our central mission, which is Democracy Dies in Darkness.
That makes 100% sense. And actually, Chase, you said something that was interesting, and you reiterated, Michael, a little bit. And we often find this sort of in the role that I have here is content discovery. You want people to see new stuff and maybe things that they didn't even know they might like. And to your point, Michael, there could be a tendency to just zero in on the 4 topics that somebody really is into, but then they never sort of expand. And I'm curious how you think about that, and how your recommendations and what you show folks, how do you expand that a little bit?
I'll start, and then I don't know, Deme or Chase, you guys want to jump in because you're closer to this. So we, it's nice having first party data. It's nice having zero party data and this direct relationship with our customer, because we know what the high value actions are. And, to your point, it's easy to go down the sort of echo chamber of like, you like this, you're going to read this. One thing that we found, and again, probably not terribly surprising, but diversity actually leads to better customer outcomes, meaning when someone reads more sections than say just politics, they're likely to stay longer and pay us longer. I think this, to me, this was even sharper when I came on board, because, post 2020 or post 2021 in a like highly charged political environment, I think everybody wanted to exhale and wanted to sort of see other verticals outside of just politics. And we'd been doing this for a really long time. I mean, I didn't know when I first got here, but like you start to understand as you dive deeper of all the wonderful journalism that we do that isn't just say politics. Chase mentioned climate, and there's a host of others, but really having that, giving that kind of opening the door for us to do that and really lean into those and show people were more than just politics. And so that was kind of win-win, great for us because it drives business metrics, but also great for I think customers, because hey, they were tired of politics, they needed a break, or COVID was too much. And so that was a real win, at least from what I took away and what I can see thus far.
100%.
And I think Chase
yeah,
mentioned
please.
this. Oh, I was saying Chase mentioned this earlier, that there are certain, we're able, and Joe mentioned this, we're able to look to see what, there are certain types of content that are better for a certain user at their stage of the funnel. And so we run tests, we collect information to understand what works for that particular customer. Maybe they want to start with a politics, but what are they going to consume next? Maybe we can connect them with Post Reports, our podcast. Maybe we can connect them to our fact checker newsletter, kind of understanding their journeys a little bit better.
I think one of the things I would add that's really interesting about our business is that in the last couple of years, there's been so much of a focus on algorithmic curation, in your Facebook newsfeed, in your Spotify recommendations, as Mike said, in the video streaming world. And for us, we're an interesting case where for almost the entire time the Post has been around, our curation has come down to expert human editors that decide every day what's going to go at the top of the homepage in the paper, what's going to go at the top of the homepage on the website. And for many, many, many years, like that was the value proposition of a newspaper, that you had, you know, some of the world's leading experts on you know, how to cover the news, kind of deciding like these are the 10 things that are the most important in the world at this point. And now I feel like we're at this really interesting juncture where that is still as important as it always has been, but now we have we have so much more information to kind of like figure out, okay, so if someone's going to come into our homepage, they're going to see something that a human editor put there, but like what's going to be their next step? What can we show them that that we covered that they didn't know that we did? So thinking about like how someone enters and then like what's the next read, what's the next ask? I think that's where there's a lot of dynamism in our industry right now.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, how many people, I'm sure you do consumer panels and tests. How many people see you just or primarily as a political news machine and sort of don't recognize all the other things that you do? I'm just curious if that brand perception is what I think it is, and is it changing?
So the answer, Scott, is it's exactly what you think. The very top line, people think of us as a political newspaper. From a Google perspective, Google thinks that we are a political newspaper. If you take a look at like our SEO, SEM efforts, we are in that bucket. But I think one of the opportunities that we have, especially with younger, more diverse audiences, is that it's a blank slate. Our surveys suggest that we have ample opportunity to change thoughts and minds about what is the Washington Post. Are we actually politics? Like I think right now politics is a dirty word, and it's something that people, especially young people, don't want to discuss online. Whether it's fear of like siloing themselves or hampering career progress. I think having some sort of blank slate and brand opportunity with top of the funnel awareness will help, you know, shape these younger opinions.
Got it. And as you guys think about your social media, which I'm sort of taking a step back because, like I said in the beginning, you guys are a brand, you're a product, and I think some of the principles of marketing that you do can apply to just about anybody else on this phone. You're talking about data, you're talking about consumers, you're trying to understand what they're looking for and how to tailor the experience to be more enjoyable for them to engage more. I'm curious, I think this would be a Deme question about social media and how active a role it plays in engagement and how often you rotate messages around and how you decide the messages. I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, that's a great question and a great point. And social media is very important to us. Like Mike said, you know, we do have a TikTok account. We are on all the major social media platforms and want to expand to even more and understand the next thing where people are consuming and talking about the news on. But we do, I guess in the paid space, we are looking to understand each different marketing touch point. And a news reader on Reddit might be different than a news reader on Facebook. And so we craft our campaigns and our messaging to make sense for them. And so the whole common themes, right? The data we're looking for, the KPIs we're measuring against are the same, but our tactics might be a little bit different depending on the platform and the demographic of the user there, where they're located, and what they're interested in. And what the conversation is. Like Twitter, every day there's a new topic, there's a new trend, depending on what's happening. And so how can we tap into that? And already we know we have great content, so how can we just get it out there farther and faster? And so we do a little bit of mix with both paid, unpaid, collaborating with our journalists to see if we can help, you know, maybe there's a great offer we can provide, a loyal audience of a specific reporter. We're looking for ways to collaborate, and we do have a great team of collaborators at the Washington Post to do that.
And in this space, I do want to call out YouTube as part of social media. And I think that all marketers see opportunity with top of the funnel acquisition through video. Like video is such a very powerful tool. People love video and engagement rates are high. And so as Deme pointed out, our strategy isn't just confined to paid. We are actively thinking about organic acquisition and organic reach, specifically through our YouTube videos. And so we recently did an audit on the YouTube channel, and we found that if we were to decrease the number of videos that we publish to YouTube, it would give more eyeballs and more engagement to our brand focused videos. And what we saw was that engagement went up. The number of videos watched after the first contact also went up, and revenue also increased, both in ad revenue and downstream conversions with subscriptions. So I think this is a tactic that anybody can use outside of the news industry, because if you can create a great video that's 3 to 15 minutes long and you can post it on YouTube, that gives people ample amount of opportunity to follow the narrative in a space that it's only you and the viewer. I think it would be great for viewers to just like rethink how are they approaching YouTube and create more brand focused videos that that really showcase the value of the brand.
God, I'd say Joe and Deme are underselling themselves a little bit. The amount of like content that we can potentially promote, or the the decisioning that happens. We do 300 stories a day. That's not inclusive of videos, and that's not inclusive of platforms. I mean, they've gotten down basically to a science, I would say, how to promote, where to promote, all of these very sophisticated, questions that when you start to like, again, I've been unraveling the sweater here a little bit. I'm just like, how have you gotten to this point? It's amazing. I've just been so impressed, and I'm used to sort of doing it on the scale of maybe like 2 to 3 ads, and again, we're now operating at over 300-ish stories a day and decisioning off of that. So again, just a huge amount of volume, and has been discussed, like the news doesn't sleep, the news doesn't wait for you. We can't say at 1 a.m. no, we don't think it's we're asleep or something like that. So it's it's just really been impressive that the operation can operate at scale essentially 24/7.
Yeah, Joe, your point of, I think people often associate video with just this beautiful sort of branding. Did it change your outlook on what you might think about a product, 3 months from now? Would you buy it? But it sounds like from what you're saying is it actually can be used as a very tactical, like, I'm clicking through now, I'm engaged, I might actually, it's a lower funnel almost tactic, it feels like, the way you described it.
Yeah, so it's kind of both. But how we view it is from the customer angle. Like,
Yeah.
to the customer, they don't know that the bottom of the funnel. They don't know that that we're trying to influence brand perceptions. All they want to do is spend 2 to 3 minutes with the brand on YouTube and get something of value afterwards. And so for us, that is the mission and the KPI, and then everything else follows. But yeah, video does very well top of the funnel. We use it for bottom of the funnel conversions, especially when we have high impact brand spots that are dropping this year. We find that it is very compelling, and it gives more real estate and more information to people who are in the research phase of their customer journey. And so there's huge implications for expanding into video.
Makes me think, I mean, doesn't everybody kind of know who the Washington Post is? And are you at this point, are you trying, I'm trying to take audience isn't the right thing for me to say, but is it trying to, well, I guess pull in somebody's attention maybe more to you from somewhere else? Like, everybody must know who you guys are.
About getting that future generation, like Mike Joe said.
Yeah.
We don't want to be your grandparents' newspaper. We want to be your kids and your future kids' newspaper.
Love it.
And that the work is never done there, I don't think.
That's a great point. My vision of the newsroom at the Washington Post comes from the movie All the President's Men, so I'm sure it's changed a massive amount since then. But do you find journalists to be somewhat competitive with each other, and they're always looking for an angle about how they can be a little bit better, maybe have more subscribers, maybe push out their Twitter channel a little bit bigger. I'm just curious what the inside scoop is on that.
So people at the Washington Post are very competitive.
In general.
In general, like even on this team, we love to win. Like, yeah, there's competition in the newsroom, but we're also very driven by the brand. Democracy Dies in Darkness, it exists like outside of marketing in the newsroom. And we're not super far off from all the president's men. Like the same principles, the same philosophy and doctrine that guided the newsroom then guides it now. If I could offer like a different counterpoint, I think the central problem that we have at the Post, especially with younger folks, is that consuming news has changed, not the value of news. And you know, thinking about delivering newspapers, reading a newspaper is very easy to do. It comes to your door, you can read it, it's not tracking you. In digital, it's different. News is everywhere, and I think we are on a mission to communicate why people should choose the Washington Post, which is why it's important for us to restate our value, restate who we are, especially if people have this understanding of what we are. We do want to challenge that, and we do want to reframe it so we're not associated with, you know, fake news or free news that's on the internet. We are a step above because we have the process, we have the doctrine, and we have the process in the newsroom.
Yeah, and just to underscore that, I mean, it's not only about like, you know, why us? It's like, why should somebody pay for us?
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's so much content out there that's free. Some of it's great, some of it's not. And you know, we're sort of in the business of forming ideally long-term relationships with our readers. So you know, it's sort of like, you know, we need to challenge ourselves every day. Like, how are we proving our value to the people that subscribe to us, that come to us? You know, how are we offering something more than they could get for free in, you know, a news feed somewhere? And I think you know, it's incumbent upon us never to sort of take for granted the trust that our readers and subscribers have found in us. That's something that we need to continue to work to earn every day that they're paying for us.
Yeah, it's almost like your work begins once they're inside, and how to keep them loyal and how to keep them coming back. I can see that.
Can I add? I think, you know, to me, I see everything in the terms of streaming just because it's where I've come from. But we're getting to a point where people are starting to have more than one subscription, and that's a behavior that people are getting more and more comfortable with. I think, and to your competitive, you know, point, I think we're learning that it's not zero sum in the sense like it's binary. There's either one provider or there's not. That was maybe the news industry before. I think now with the, you know, just digital subscriptions, people have very different needs, and no one publication, no one outlet is going to provide all of those needs. And so, you know, understanding where we fit in, how we fit in, you know, for some, we might be everything, or we might be, you know, one of two, you know, for someone else, we might be one of four. And I think, especially as you start to think of us now as a global organization, at least for the English speaking world, you know, it put things in perspective that we can win together. And I will say, definitely more so than the streaming industry, like there is a collaboration in this category that I hadn't seen before. People want other publishers to succeed, and can get behind that. And, you know, there's a sharing again that I haven't seen in other categories. And to me, that's really interesting.
Actually, I'm really curious how you guys come up with the price point for subscriptions. How does that get determined?
Chase.
Well, I mean, we look at a bunch of things. You know, as Mike said, we're a global organization. So we went through an exercise in the last couple of years of taking what had been longstanding domestic price points and figuring out, you know, what should our price be in Canadian dollars, what should it be in pounds, what should it be in euros. We are in India with a very competitive subscription price that is much different than what we offer here. So, I mean, it's sort of looking at the markets we're in. It's looking at the competitive set. You know, what are international competitors charging? What are domestic competitors charging? And then, you know, it's just keeping a super tight pulse on, what is in the news cycle. If there's a big moment, maybe that's a time where we lower the price, we try to get more people in the door, we try to encourage more sampling. So, that's sort of like, it's a question that we're never going to solve. It's one of the things that we're, whatever the day of the week it is, you can bet that somebody is thinking about what we're going to test next with our pricing.
I know we only have a couple minutes left. Just more broadly, I'm curious from each of you how you would like to see what's going to happen this year. What's 2022 going to look like? How is your role going to change, if at all? Or how are you going to adopt to maybe a life post-COVID? Hopefully, knock on wood. Just curious how your roles will change. I'll start from the top to the bottom, just because it's in my screen. Chase, you get to go first.
2022 for us, we operationalized a lot of things in 2021, just from a team perspective. We learned to work together in new ways. We learned to work with other teams in new ways. We learned to really use the tools that we have on-site and off-site to get messages out more efficiently than we ever have before. 2022 is going to bring a lot of news opportunity with the midterms, et cetera. So I'm looking forward to us kind of expanding the collaboration that we built in 2021 and really using that to capitalize on what the news environment is going to bring organically in 22.
Nice. Deme?
Yeah, I think 2022, like these past couple of years have just taught me be ready for anything, right? And I think that's also a great part of our team and how the Washington Post works is we're very flexible, adaptable, and like everyone on the call had already said, we want to test, we want to experiment. And so more collaboration, more experimentation, and how can we go bigger? How can we serve more news to more people? And how do we think about that more strategically?
Yeah. Joe?
Measurement and attribution will be the biggest things on my plate this year. We are starting to expand to physical, out of home, direct mail, and creating a narrative that gives the right attribution to those top of the funnel initiatives will be very important. As I mentioned before, we are using a CDP, a customer data platform, debuting this year. And so just really getting into the weeds, understanding who is doing what, where are they doing it, and then tying it back to marketing, whether it's paid or organic or through product, creating walls or other touch points that drive people further down the funnel. Measurement is going to be it's going to be key for developing and growing.
Michael, I think I've left you with about 20 seconds, and then I think it's going to take over.
Yeah, and everyone took all the good stuff. What I would say is, so we've made a lot of investments internationally on the newsroom side. I think there is our lagging effect is like audience, visitors, and ultimately subscriptions. And so, really clarifying our role internationally and then growing our footprint internationally.